There truly are never any accidents in your life. When you meet certain people, when you stumble across certain teachers or certain books, or you just are introduced to certain topics, it is not a random accident. It is not a random coincidence. It is always a sign of where your authentic energy is leading you next. You are a very specific and honestly special expression of God, an expression of God that is having fun coming home to itself in new ways. We as God, we come to this 3D reality to build false blocks in order for us to learn how to overcome them in new way. This is the process of expansion. And what do I mean by false blocks? Well, you know, as an expression of God, and God is everything. God is nothing and God is everything. God is the whole universe. God is everything that could ever happen. God just is everything. So in that pure non-human expression of God, you know that things like rejection and abandonment, they are real experiences, but they are not real in terms of who you are. You are God, not defined by an experience of rejection. Rejection is this 3D playing in the sandbox false block that you as God might come back to again and again and again in order to expand around it. Because every time you give yourself a limit, you give yourself a new way to overcome it. But your higher self knows you're not defined by any of these limitations of the 3D reality. This physical 3D world that we live in, it is our sandbox to play in, to create. But just like a child who's creating sandcastles on the beach, you know that the sandcastle isn't real. It's a creation that you made, and you can just as easily destroy it whenever you want to, or watch as the waves come and wash it away. The sandcastle that you've built here, it doesn't define you, but it is your playful, unique expression of God that creates these limitations, destroys them, creates some new limitations, destroys them, and this is your growth. This is your expansion. And I get that to your ego is like, I just want comfort. I just want things to be easy. I just want things to be secure. I just want everything to just be very certain and easy. No growth, please. Ego just wants comfort, no growth. And when you too strongly identify with that ego desire for just safety, security, no growth, easy as possible, when you're overly identifying with that part of your ego, you will suffer, because these blocks, these false blocks that you have created in your life, they feel very real. They feel like a very genuine threat to the ego that takes, again, this physical reality very seriously, because the ego was built to exist here and to help you navigate this 3D reality. But it's dangerous to overly identify to yourself and to your life through this purely 3D physical ego appraisal of things. So why am I saying this? I'm not saying this to encourage you to spiritually bypass or emotionally bypass these false limits that you've created in your life this far. I'm not giving you this reminder just to help you dissociate from life and again just try to bypass it like, oh yeah, that's whatever, I'm not my ego, I'm my higher self. Quite the opposite, actually. I am making this video. This is a very channeled message kind of video that just felt very important to be putting out to you right now, because I can just feel in the collective, I just know it because of the content I've been making recently has been very heavily focused on emotional integration, emotional releasing. It's not an accident that I have been feeling like it's time to put so much emphasis on that. So this channeled message that I have for you right now is really to give you a lot of validation that you are going in the right direction with your emotional dives that you've been doing. If you are here with me right now watching this video, I know that you have stopped trying to manifest through your ego. So many people, especially when they first discover manifestation and the laws of the universe and the laws of how we create and manifest our lives, they are manifesting primarily through their ego initially, because their ego is like, you know what I think would be the easiest thing ever, the most awesome, most comfortable thing ever? It would be if I could control this person, or if I could control this thing, or if I could control this outcome. The ego desperately wants control. And as you've heard me say maybe a lot, when you first learn of manifestation and you're accidentally manifesting through your egoic desire for control and through that, oh my God, I don't want suffering anymore thing, you accidentally make your life worse and you cause your suffering to raise and your manifestations probably aren't even working. So you are here because you finally get it, that in order to tear down your old sandcastle and build a new one, you do have to get your hands dirty. And what does that metaphor mean? It means that you need to go into your deeper energy, the actual energy that built that sandcastle to begin with, in your subconscious, in your unconscious. You have to actually fearlessly go into it, explore it, allow it to release in a different way so that it dissolves, and then your new sandcastle can be built. That real expansion can happen for you, where you really do overcome. If the example is this rejection thing, this rejection false limit thing, you are now fearlessly digging your hands into that sandcastle of false rejection. You're no longer trying to just bypass it and ignore it as if it was never there. You're actually doing that soul work because your soul is unafraid of everything. It's not afraid of anything. Because remember, you are God. You are a unique expression of God that is chosen to bravely live this physical, dense life that, yes, is challenging. The expansion is challenging. But we created this dense world so that we could push against our own limits and rediscover ourselves even deeper. And the universe just keeps expanding and expanding. So you bravely chose this. But remember, as God, you are everything and nothing. Nothing is really a threat to you. It is only the ego that perceives things as threats. It is only the ego that is afraid of your fear. It is only the ego that is afraid of certain physical situations. It's only your ego that's afraid of feeling deeper emotional experiences that you might have had in the past and need to release. So now that you have stopped so strongly identifying with the ego limitations. The ego kind of is the sandcastle. It's the old sandcastle. And you finally stepped outside of the old ego sandcastle, and now you're looking at it as the higher self, the operant power self, the bigger true you God self that has genuine perspective that, hey, this sandcastle that the ego thinks is me, this is not me, and I don't need to be afraid of it. All of these limitations that I learned to build about myself, all of these egoic assumptions that I learned to take on about myself, they're not actually real. They're false limits that I created from real experiences, of course. You had a real experience, but it created a false limit. And now, as your God self, as you are identifying more and more with your God self, you are tearing down that old sandcastle. And as I said, that means you're going to get your hands a little dirty, but you're fearless about it. In fact, now you can even find the fun in it. Isn't it kind of fun to just sort of feel our old feelings and be like, wow, every feeling within me is alive. Every feeling within me I can celebrate. Even things like fear, even things like the deepest grief, even things like deep confusion and uncertainty about death. Every single emotional experience that I have is actually a celebration of life and all of the interesting 3D experiences and sensations that we have access to on this planet. And none of them are a threat to you. They're all just fascinating experiences along an emotional spectrum. So the more that you are so fearlessly stepping into that God self that is no longer afraid of a false limit that's like, oh no, but if this situation happens, that will make me feel fear and I can't feel my fear. My ego has decided I can't feel it. Now that you're no longer being that kind of person operating with the old limits, you are truly stepping into your power. And again, this is why I've just intuitively known that the collective here is so able now to go deeper into these emotional things, this emotional integration, this emotional releasing, because you are genuinely starting to identify with your God self, and therefore you are naturally more fearless to reclaim these things. And as I said, you're genuinely becoming powerful now. You were not powerful when you were fearfully trying to manifest through your ego. And you know it because you experienced it. You experienced the opposite of power. You felt even more stuck, even more in suffering. The more you were stuck in this ego, trying to control, trying to do manifestation perfectly, trying to figure out how and when and what to do to make everything go your way so that you could be comfortable finally. When you were doing that, it really sucked. You were in a lot of suffering. You felt the opposite of power. But now you are trusting yourself enough to hold your own energy. Before, you were afraid of your energy. You were afraid of the emotions within you. You were afraid of being triggered. You were constantly comfort seeking. And again, that's the ego. Now you are like, oh, I can hold all my experiences and know in my higher knowing that I am safe with every experience that comes up for me. Nothing that happens within my frame of consciousness is ever a threat to me. That is real power. And that kind of higher knowing is exactly the paradoxical thing that alchemizes your old energy, your old sandcastle, so that you actually do start manifesting what you want and your life does genuinely change. So you are doing this. The reason you're watching this right now, the reason I'm channeling this message for you specifically is because you are doing this. And I really want to validate you, because I also have to say, when you start going deeper into trusting, okay, I'm really going to go deep and feel the deepest emotions or these deep experiences that I need to release, that I've been too afraid to release. When you start doing that, it is normal that sometimes you're going to have ego backlash. And what that means is sometimes you'll have a really big purge or a really big experience of a deep grief or a deep fear or who knows what. And your ego goes, whoa, okay, I've allowed too much of this. I was okay with a little bit of emotional releasing, but this is too much. I feel crazy. Ego feels out of control. I think you should stop. I think you're being bad. I think you're being crazy. I think what you're doing isn't going to work. So ego is like, let's go back to doing what we were doing because I'm threatened by this emotional experience. And of course it's threatened. For so long, your whole adult life probably, it specifically locked away those feelings or those old things within you to protect you. It thought it was protecting you by saying, don't feel the energy of that stuff. It's bad. What we should be seeking is control and comfort. So push all that away. And to a certain extent, we could thank the ego for protecting us in that way or trying to protect us in that way. But what I'm saying now is that now that you're going beyond the ego and you're trusting, again, this very paradoxical kind of uncertain journey of like, okay, I trust that I will alchemize this deeper stuff that built my sandcastle, that's kept my sandcastle in place. I'm just going to trust that I will alchemize it the more that I just allow it and feel it and allow it to transmute in this new way, because now I'm seeing the energy from the perspective of the higher self and not the perspective of the small self that is the ego, that immediately turns energy into a very specific story and then traps it. The higher self, the God self, doesn't do stories. It doesn't lock in energy with a story, because remember, your God self is unafraid of everything, and it doesn't give 3D narratives to things the way that your ego does. The higher self sees everything as just energy that we want to work with. Your higher self desperately wants to feel and work with that deeper, juicier energy within you, that deep, deep repressed fear, that deep, deep repressed anger, that deep, deep repressed sadness, because it knows that is the experience that I came to this 3D world to alchemize and to work with. I didn't come to this 3D reality planet to just live in my ego and seek comfort, because that's how people reincarnate and create the same karma over and over and over again and never change, because they're living only from their ego lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And eventually, because everyone has their own karmic soul journey, they will eventually drop deeper and do the deeper alchemization. But just living from ego doesn't change very much. And again, you know this because you've experienced it, and your own God self knows what I'm saying is true. So your God self is not afraid of this deeper energy. It knows that that's the exact energy that it wants to work with to actually release you from these old limitations, these old false limits, this old sandcastle that I just laugh every time I say the sandcastle analogy. But this old sandcastle needs to be torn down. You've outgrown it. You built it for a time. You had some experiences with it, and now your soul wants to grow past it, and it grows past it by really going into the energy and feeling it and expressing it in this pure way. And what happens is you'll suddenly start having epiphanies. I know you're already experiencing this, or you'll start feeling a genuine confidence and lightness and a genuine sense of power as you suddenly become fearless. You're no longer afraid about, oh, I have to be codependent in my relationships. You're no longer afraid of, oh, I have to do this to be successful. It's like you're no longer thinking from the ego. You're thinking of it from this new identity created through your God self, and the ego learns as you go. You are training your ego to get used to the new sandcastle as you go. So just trust the ego is going to follow suit eventually. So again, I'm saying all this to validate you. You aren't crazy, because that is often something that you can feel when you're doing this work. You feel like every other human on the planet can just be normal and can seemingly just live their life and not have to do this work. And then you feel like you're crazy because you have to do this work and you don't even know why you're doing it sometimes. And that's normal to feel this way. Again, that's part of your ego being so disoriented by the shifts that you're making that it is just projecting out like this, I just don't know what's going on. And your ego also loves to compare with other people. So of course it creates stories about that. But I just want to validate you. You are on the right track. This deeper emotional energy releasing that you're doing, or emotional integration that you're doing, is the right thing to do. You are not going to spiritually bypass anymore, because as you found, that didn't work either. Because just knowing that you are a soul and not your physical experience, even though that's true, that's not enough to help you transmute the energy. Because again, that's just knowledge that's getting trapped in your ego. Your ego can hold on to that knowledge of like, yeah, I'm not my body and energy, I'm a soul. And then it justifies the, yeah, but let's still not feel that energy because that's not us anyway. So we'll just like keep that down and never feel it, never let it out, never transmute it. Your ego's very good at hijacking spiritual knowledge. And that is what the spiritual bypass is, the ego hijacking spiritual knowledge. But real spiritual transformation is very experiential. This is why meditation, mindfulness, real self-on-self experiencing day to day is what causes genuine spiritual shifts and genuine energy shifts, and therefore genuine manifestation shifts. So you are on the right track. You are doing the right thing. And I am here for you. Again, there's a reason that I have felt like it's the time to go deeper into this emotional stuff on this channel. And it's because of you. You are leading it, and I am responding as the teacher of like, okay, this is what we need to talk about next because this is what you are going into next. So trust yourself, know that you are on the right path, and just let me know down in the comments whatever you're thinking and feeling. And also, once again, I totally forgot to introduce myself. I think it's because it interrupts my flow, especially when I'm channeling, because that's really what this video was. I honestly didn't know what I was going to say today because I just decided, I know we need to talk about emotional stuff, but I didn't know exactly how that was going to come out. This whole thing was just channeled. So again, when I'm in the channeling flow, I tend to forget to put in my intro. So it's now an outro. My name is Genevieve, and I'm a spiritual teacher and a manifestation coach. And I have lots of courses down in the description below. I also have coaching, one-on-one coaching. If you want to work with me, talk about your life, your situation, what is going on for you, and how I can help you to navigate it. So check out all the links below. If you feel inspired by me and this channel and my level of teaching, yeah, check out the courses, check out the links. And again, if you don't want to do that, you can just like this video and subscribe to my channel. That really helps me grow and to get to more people who are on your level, who are a part of this collective, who need this message. So thank you for being here with me today, and I will see you in my next video. All right, bye.